I'm going to take a massive risk. I have just sneezed like 5 times before I push that live button. So I'm going to try to be prompt. What's up, guys? So today I'm going to bring you a little bit of a story, but at the same time, this story very easily will turn into a rant because it just amazes me that stuff like this happens, but whatever. I cannot claim expertise on communication skills. But, anyways, so recently I was at my job and I was doing a job that I don't normally do. Because it is a job that I don't normally do, I do not have the training that this particular job requires. Or I don't want to say requires because really it's not a skilled job in any stretch of the imagination. It's just that the person who does this job already knows the routine, has gone through the actual training to know what they're doing. So, of course, they will have developed the skill to get this job done. And I only knew the basics, which is the stuff that you need to get done in the day, your expectations. Let's put it that way. Well, a part of it has to do with taking certain items and distributing them to a certain place so that they can be properly sorted and then shipped somewhere. Because it is something that requires a certain degree of detail, of course, the folks who assign me to that job don't necessarily know the detail because they haven't undergone that training. So when I don't know something, I will ask a question. But sometimes you don't ask a question about something because you think that you're doing it correctly because it seems to be a pretty straightforward process. Well, in my case, it was that while I was doing this job, apparently I kept misplacing certain items to where I was contaminating the group of items that I was including the items that I was bringing along with the group that was already present there. And then someone decided to send a aggressive email to my supervisors talking about it, talking about how um, I don't know if they used my name specifically or something, but they were talking about how I kept messing up that sorting um, area. And I'm like, okay, this person who is sending this email, who is in charge of that zone, has not come to me and told me anything. I am perfectly approachable. You can come talk to me and coach me right there and then, and I will listen to you and I will appreciate it because you know that I'm regularly not the one in charge of that task. So it is expected for the quality of the job to make me suffer a little bit, but it's not due to negligence, it's due to lack of training, which is completely out of my control. The only reason I was doing that job is because we needed something called coverage. So, anyways, if you would have taken the initiative to be like, okay, she's doing this wrong, let me go ahead and stop her because she has many more hours to go in her shift. So, the earlier that I can coach her in her error, the quicker that she can mend it and the better quality job that she is going to yield. No, this person decided that the most effective method of communication is to email my supervisors and to not carbon copy me or to not send me a copy of the email as well. I don't know if she used my name. I don't know if it was understood that it was me, at that moment in time, or if you had to investigate by looking at the schedule. But I think it's stupid that if you are going to whine and complain about me, you should do it at me, especially if it's in regards to something that I'm not doing right. Because if you do not coach me, how do you expect for me to get the job done right? I think it should be something pretty straightforward. Like, don't be afraid to talk to me. I cannot bite you, I cannot hit you. So just come to me and tell me what it is, and everything will be okay. But it really left me with a really bad taste because I'm like, it almost sounds like this was done with the intention to like maybe turn this into a gossip situation or maybe try to say that my performance is poor. And I'm like, no, what happens here is that for some reason you are not effective at communicating and you are afraid of communicating with the person who's making the mistake. So you are not doing anybody any favors. And guess what? By the time that I was informed that what I was doing was wrong, it took 3 days to get to me, you know? And on top of that, even if I would have been, even if I would have had access to my email during those days, I wouldn't have found out because I wasn't included as a recipient. So, do you think that's the proper way to coach me? I mean, I found out from one of my supervisors who was like, "Hey, do you remember that day that you were taking care of some sorting? Um, what happened? Do you remember what happened?" And I'm like, "What happened was I was taking this to where I thought it went, and by what you're telling me, clearly I'm wrong, but nobody told me anything." So I think I did pretty well at this, considering my lack of information. So I'm not trying to like crap on anybody, but I strongly dislike the people who are like this. Just if you have an issue with someone or if you see someone doing something wrong, approach them immediately and coach in the moment. You do not need to be afraid of speaking because that would have prevented disaster from happening, which it's no big deal. All it is an inconvenience for this person because that means that she has to take an extra step, which is replace the items that I took to this specific spot and then trade them, which I get it. It can slow you down a little bit because it's an extra task that you have to do that you shouldn't do, that you normally don't do because there's a person assigned for that. And like I said, I was just covering the hole in the schedule. But please, just go directly to the person and tell them, look, I observed this about you. You are not doing this exactly right. Here's how it's done. Here's what we expect. Here's what we would like. And just be polite about it because the way that the email was shown to me or shared with me, it was like kind of an aggressive tone. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but that was completely unnecessary. But anyways, fortunately, the good thing about me is that I don't take stuff like that like personal. I can move on with my life. But it's disappointing that in a professional setting I have to deal with that. But anyways, guys, that's my rambling for the day. This applies not only at work but in life in general. Sometimes you find people who they complain about someone, they whine about someone to you, and there's nothing that you can do about it. It's like, how is telling me going to benefit you? You want me to take your complaint to them, or do you just want to vent? Or because I would expect that if you start voicing something, it's because you want to try to resolve it. So if you are going to address this with the person who's not involved, how is that productive? Unless you're seeking advice on maybe how to make the first step or a what would you do situation, then okay. But if you're just going to whine to someone else about someone and you want to resolve the issue, you need to take it directly to the person who you're having issues with. Unless you are in a position where a healthy exchange between you and that person is not possible. But normally that's not the case. Something I have learned in life is that by speaking, people understand each other. So, yeah, I would say speak, but to the right person. And in a situation like that, I would say that you need to take it directly to the person that you made an observation about that's troublesome and then coach them. That's it. All right, guys. Well, let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you experience stuff like this and what do you do or what do people around you do. I'm pretty curious to know. Like I said, this doesn't affect me. It was addressed. It was understood that there was a lack of communication, and obviously, that concludes my rambling. All right, guys, thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you soon.